So this video, the lesson was originally
Do we know what nonfiction is?
handed it to me. I was able to personalize it a little
Yeah,
bit,
that's the difference. Fiction is
more with the
not real.
discussion than
Fiction is
anything,
based off
but
of
the
true
assignment and
events.
actual activities and everything was her doing.
Do we know any examples of nonfiction?
Like books? Actual.
No, that's fiction.
Hey,
Superman's not real.
Wait,
So fiction.
wait.
Yeah, like a newspaper or a biography.
No,
Yeah, Diary of Anne Frank. That's a very much a nonfiction book.
Like Diary of Wimpy.
So we are going to read a nonfiction short story. It's actually a short story. It's not even 500 words. So it's by Amy Tan, and she is a Chinese American author. She was born in California, but both of her parents were Chinese immigrants. So she
I was
did a
actually
lot of
pleasantly
writing
surprised.
about
I gave
Chinese,
people
being a Chinese
a bit
American
of
person
background
growing
on
up in
Amy
that.
Tan, the author,
This story
and
is called Fish
they
Cheeks.
actually
It
used
was-
it in their writing
it was
activity
written in 1987.
later on,
It was posted in
and I
Seventeen
didn't think that
magazine.
they were actually paying
Really
attention to me
popular,
that much.
and it
So
actually
that was
sparked
kind of
6
nice to
other
see that
books
they
from
paid
it.
attention to the
And
fact
it's
to
considered
the
an
facts that I gave them about the
autobiography
author,
because
and
it's
then used
actually
that in their writing
happened
activity.
in her real life. So we're going to read this out loud together, and we're going to talk about it, and then we are also going to do a writing assignment. But it says group, so it won't be.
My class hates writing. They can't stand writing. There are 4 or 5 ESOL students in this class that either just left ESOL or are in the last little bit of their ESOL program, and they do not like writing whatsoever.
Why are cultural differences in America important?
What makes America a melting pot?
Okay. We are a melting pot, right? There's a lot of us here. One more.
We have extras?
I will say I think I wasted a lot of time getting these papers passed out.
We have, like, America, we have a ton of differences, right? We have people from all over the world, and that's why they kind of call us the melting pot or a salad bowl of the world. Why is that important, though? Like, what would it be like if we were all the same all the time? It would, right? It makes us more unique. It makes it better for us. Exactly. So that's why this is important, because it kind of shows you what it's like to be Chinese, but also a Chinese American. So I'm going to read the first paragraph, and then we're going to popcorn read. You don't have one?
I keep looking at my host teacher. This was the first time and the only time that she let me up in front of the classroom by myself. And I kept forgetting that I was the one in charge. Every time a problem arose, I just kind of looked at my host teacher for help, and she would just look back at me like, this is your class today.
So pay attention.
I think because of that, that's probably why my classroom management wasn't very good either, because there are several times where the class gets a little out of control with the talking,
I fell
and
in love with the minister's son.
I probably should have controlled it a little bit better in retrospect.
He was not Chinese, but as white as Mary in the manger. For Christmas, I prayed for this blonde-haired boy, Robert, and a slim, new American nose. So what does this tell us about Amy so far?
She's in love with the white boy, and she wishes she was white. Well, her nose was white.
Yeah, she does. She wishes she looked like an American girl, right? Yeah. Why does she want that?
So she could fit
She
in?
doesn't want to be different.
Yeah. Who wants to read the next paragraph?
I was pleasantly surprised during this part because I didn't know how active in participating my students would be, because my host teacher doesn't really give them a lot of opportunity to talk or volunteer for things. So it's very lecture style. So I was pleasantly surprised when people were actually volunteering to answer questions and talk and in a discussion about the text and participate in their reading.
So what can we infer about her, how she feels about being Chinese?
She's not about it.
She's embarrassed. Yeah. Okay, who else wants to read?
On Christmas Eve, I saw that my mother had outdone herself in creating a strange menu.
She was pulling back veins out of the backs of fleshy prawns. The kitchen was littered with appalling mounds of raw food. A slimy rock cod with blue, bulging eyes that pleaded not to be thrown into a pan of hot oil. Tofu, which looked like stacked wedges of rubbery white sponges. A owl soaking dried fungus back to life. A plate of squid, their backs crisscrossed with knife markings so that they resembled bicycle tires.
Go ahead and finish those next 2 lines for me, too.
And then they arrived, the minister's family and all my relatives, in a clamor of doorbells and rumpled Christmas packages. Robert grunted, hello, and one pretended he was not worthy of existence.
Yeah. So why is this information relevant? Why is that important that she decided to go into this whole detail about the food being served?
Yeah, because they're not used to like that much seafood. They're mostly
Yeah, it's kind of weird, huh? It's kind of makes your stomach turn a little bit the way she describes it. That's not normal. Normally with Christmas dinner we
I will
have
say
turkey and
that
potatoes, right?
the class, it's,
And not tofu.
I guess you can kind of see it in the video, but the class was very split down the middle
Is
with
this
engagement.
important? Do we
The
take in this
entire,
information as a reader?
if you're looking from the video, the entire right half of the classroom was very engaged, as you can see. They were volunteering to read and talking to me and answering questions and very engaged and paying attention. And then the entire left-hand side of the room was just giving me absolutely nothing.
Have you
And
ever read something and
I
you
think
felt
something
that
that I
it
probably
wasn't
could have done
important to
was
the rest of the story?
cold call with the reading so that they had to read versus letting people just volunteer.
Well, back in the day, I used to read Diary with the Kid.
I also think I tried not to call on people for answers because I wanted them to feel comfortable discussing, which I know is more of a college concept than a high school concept. But
Does anyone else feel
I
this?
think maybe if I'd called on students
Is
a
all
little
this
bit
important
more
or not
versus just
important?
letting them volunteer their thoughts and their participation, I think I might have gotten a more engaged classroom.
Yeah. How so?
Like let's say like we switch some of the food.
I think it also doesn't help that the desk that I was using up at the front was kind of turned towards the right hand of the classroom. So I noticed my body tends to turn to the right hand of the classroom a lot more too, which also probably didn't help with engagement because I know that there's several times I'm looking at this video and I know that I'm turned off away from the half of the class that's not talking. So I think in retrospect there are some things that I could have done to
Okay. Who wants to read the
increase involvement.
paragraph? Anybody? Somebody? Sure.
Dinner threw me deeper into despair. My relatives licked the ends of their chopsticks and reached across the table, dipping them into the dust.
I did like having the students read aloud and then us discuss it. I think the host teacher called it think aloud reading. I really liked this because it is kind of a college concept because I feel like, and you can tell from the students, they are not used to getting to participate and discuss literature and text as much as they were today. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. But I think it's great because it really kind of was nice hearing their thoughts, and you could tell they were happy to hear their thoughts.
At the end of the meal.
At the end of the meal, my father leaned back and blinked slowly, thanking my
This
mother
boy,
for
Cesar
fine
reading,
cooking.
he's
It
an
is like a
ESOL
nice
student,
Chinese custom to show you are
and he does not speak up in class very often. I was very surprised when he read and he answered some questions and whatnot. I was really proud of him because he does not talk in class, and he decided to talk today and read, and I was very proud of him.
Into silence for the rest of the night.
So how do we feel about this scene? This is a lot of interesting things that's not normal for dinner for us, right? Like they're burping loudly and yeah. How would you feel if you were Amy in this situation?
Since I'm a guy.
Yeah, absolutely. So from this point on, we haven't finished the story, but what can we gather?
So I really like this text, Fish Cheeks by Amy Tan. I did not pick it out, my host teacher did. But I like it because we do have a very diverse
Joey?
mix of students in this classroom. And I liked the idea of having this story because it was kind of showing of it revealed a bit of a different culture to the students, and it also had a very relevant message of being having a culture that's different from people or your peers, and to not be ashamed of it and to like embrace it and everything. And you could tell the students really enjoyed the reading because of that, because they could relate to Amy Tan a little bit.
What evidence do we have of her being ashamed? Like, yes, we hear her say that she's ashamed and that she wants to disappear, but what else can we find from the story that shows it? Besides that, maybe look a little deeper.
I also liked this discussion, this think aloud reading, because later on in the lesson they're doing a writing prompt to help them practice for the FSA.
Mostly, doesn't she?
And
Like, these are a lot of
this
times
conversation
I've heard a lot of stories about this, like how
kind of helps
people
build
from
them
different
up
cultures
to
have
that
really
writing
very
prompt.
passive and not opinionated.
The goal is to get
She
them
describes
to learn
this
how to
very
cite, how
grossly,
to
doesn't she?
state an argument and then cite text
Does anyone else have
for
any?
to support that argument. That way they could practice argumentative writing for the FSA.
Yeah, that's a
So
good quote.
I try to ask them a lot of questions that would involve
Do you
them
have something too?
having to
No?
find in the text
What do we
something to
think
back up what they're going to answer to
Like,
me.
if you were Robert in this, you think it's awesome? You like the idea of
I
being
think
a
I probably
reporter?
definitely could have scaffolded this lesson a bit better though
I mean,
with my
like,
host teacher.
I would find it interesting. It's something new, and it's always good to try something new.
Yeah.
But I also like personally.
I think if I could redo the lesson and plan it myself,
You'd probably just politely try to eat
I
it.
probably would have done it a bit differently to scaffold it.
It like depends on like how
I
your
think we would have
parents
spent
raised
some time
you.
reviewing how to
Yeah,
cite
it does. It's
text,
culture, right? Chinese culture versus American
and then I
culture.
think we
There's a
probably
huge
would have
clash at
spent
this point, isn't there?
less time reading this aloud and talking about
Who
it,
wants to read
and more
the
time
seventh
writing
paragraph?
in groups.
Start. Yes.
After everyone had gone, my mother said to me, "You want to be the same as American girls on the outside." She handed me an early gift.
Because I could tell from their writing that they probably needed a bit more
Must always be trying
guidance and reminding with how to cite correctly
And who wants to read the last paragraph?
and how to find good textual evidence to support a claim correctly.
I knew that she understood how much I had suffered during the evening dinner. It wasn't until many years later, long after one had gotten
It did align with what they were working on, though. This was a transitional lesson because they had just gotten back. This was the day after spring break had ended, and right before that, they had just finished a unit on
So what was
based off of a novel. So this was kind of their first lesson after that, and it was just all preparing for writing and the FSA. So this was kind of a good
ashamed, right?
breach into that because the host teacher was able to look at the writing with me and was able to observe this lesson and see just where they were at with their writing and what she needed to really work on to prepare for the FSA.
Exactly. But she still gave her the mini skirt. She still gave her an American clothing item, right? Because she knew that that's what she wanted at the time, right? So, did the lesson work? Why do you say probably not? No, go ahead.
I don't know.
No, there's something that made you say that. What makes you think that? That's not wrong.
I mean, she hates like throughout the story, she hates everything. And, like, I don't think she's gonna change because.
Again, I'm so proud of him for having participated so much. I think he talked more in this class, in this one lesson, than he did the entire semester that I've been with them. So I'm really proud of him.
Around her, like she wants to be like everyone else. Yeah.
That's a good inference. Yeah, that's one way to look at it. Does anyone else think something different? Does anyone else think that She's still ashamed of the end of the story? Yeah. Does anyone else think?
I also think maybe this lesson could have had a little bit more diversity to it.
Well, I mean, like, about the ashamed part,
It was, we read as a class, and then they did a writing assignment in partners. So I think there probably could have been a bit more variation in what we were doing. Like I said, I probably would have spent a little bit of time
So
talking
it's kind of
about
like
how
a
to cite text, since that was
later on
the
the
whole
lesson.
goal of the day.
Kind of like what happens to us. Like,
So I probably would have spent a little bit more time at doing that. I think I probably would have had a little bit more group work.
Yeah. Let me tell you, that happens a lot when you get older too.
I think I would have
That does.
let them do a few different more activities besides just reading and then writing.
But I guess I will. So, what was the purpose of the story? As a reader, like from you, not from Amy's point of view, because we've been talking about this. As you reading it, what's the point? Why should you be reading this? What lesson can you learn from this?
To always be yourself.
Yeah. Not be ashamed of who you are.
Yeah, never let go of who you are.
I liked asking that question
Yeah.
because I was trying to figure out
And then lastly, because we've been kind of
if the
talking
students
about
would
this
find it
whole time,
relevant.
you guys
I knew that some of them
can
would,
we
but I
say
didn't
what
know if
the
all of
teachers
them
are
would particularly enjoy it, and I didn't know if I feel like they're at this age where they're like, what is the point of school? So
So,
I liked asking that question
what we're
because I
going to do
wanted
for
to
the
make
rest
them
of the
think
class
about,
period,
what
because
is
I
the
know you
point?
have
Why are we
essays
reading
coming up
this?
and we need to practice writing.
And I feel like they gave some
You're
pretty good
going to
answers.
write into groups of 2 or 4, up to you. Just kind of turn to the people next to you. And I want y'all to take a piece of paper out. You can use your highlighters.
I was a
to
little
highlight
unprepared
evidence.
with this part.
There's also
When I
if you turn
was
your
given this
page,
lesson
there
to
is a
practice and
really good
rehearse at home,
resource for helping you.
and I had
You're
done a
going
little
to
bit of
write just a
tweaking and
paragraph
planning,
or
it
2,
was based
nothing. I'm
off
not
the
going to make
fact
you write a
that
full
these
paper,
students were in
but I
table
want you
groups
to
of
write a very strong
5
thesis statement
or 6,
with evidence from the story
and
supporting it. What is
I
the
came in
lessons that
that
Amy
morning
learned
and they were in rows, and the host teacher
when
didn't
she
tell
read
me.
this lesson?
So
You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to
I had
acknowledge
to
that you
kind of
missed the lesson, but
improvise
I want to
with
know why. And I want
how
you
to
to
group
draw
the
evidence
students
from the
because I still
story.
wanted them
So
to
use
write
your
as a
highlighters
group
to highlight quotes,
since
and
they
then
didn't
you can
have
write in the margins.
the most
That's your
time
answers. You don't have to
in the
turn it back
class,
in to me.
but
Okay?
and it
So
was
turn
still
your
just a
people,
beginning
you 2
early
together, you 2
writing
rows,
practice for
you 2
them.
rows,
So
and you 2 rows. Just kind of work next to each other. And
I
then
think
at
it
the
worked out
end of
okay.
the
I think I
lesson,
would have rather them have done,
about the last 5
the
minutes of
goal
the
was for
lesson,
them
we're
to
going to
be in
actually
their
turn
groups
the
of 5
paper.
or 6 and
So
then to
make sure you
write
do.
a full
Okay?
mini
I'm
essay.
going to walk around. Sorry. You can share one paper. You can, yeah, 2 ideas, 1 paper. And there has to be a
Yeah,
paragraph or 2, but I want
I
to
shortened
see
it a little
good
bit
evidence.
because
I want to see you using quotes from the
I didn't think
story.
that 2 of
I
them
want to
could
see you
create a full
using,
paper in the time
drawing
allotted.
inferences from the story, okay?
So, and I kind of just wanted to see that they knew how to write. Again, my classroom management definitely could have gone a little bit better because, again, I kind of was trying to refer to my host teacher. I wasn't used to being in charge of the classroom, so I probably should have taken a little bit more control.
This is an English class, so let's write in black pen, please.
Also, don't feel that you have to write in black pen in English class. I know that that's a very traditional thing, but I only said that because my host teacher enjoys that, and I wanted to stay consistent for them. I didn't want to say they could write in pencil and then the host teacher snap at them later about using pencil the next day. They kind of just spent the rest of the class. The video is going to cut off about 10 minutes too short, but
Yeah, you'll only need 1 sheet of paper. No. Okay, so the papers on the back of the short story is to help you
oh yeah,
write
my host teacher, she said that she would print off all the materials that I needed. So she printed off I told her I just needed the story fish cheeks printed for them, and then just to make sure they all had a highlighter, paper and pencils, or pen. And she ended up printing them off this entire worksheet with pages that I had never even seen before. So when students started asking me about it, I kind of drew a blank because I had no idea what those papers were, but I also couldn't tell them that I didn't know what those papers were because I was supposed to be the teacher.
Yeah, that's what the highlighter.
I was impressed. I do think the students respond to me fairly well, which I meet with them twice a week, every week. So I've had time to build up my existence there, and I was pleasantly surprised with how well they did respond to me. If I said group up and work, if you see they aren't really that off task, they're grouped up and they're working, and they stayed pretty diligent, and there was some off task talking, but they all got their work done, so I let it happen a little bit. But I was impressed that no one really got out of control or anything like that, especially since, like I've said a few times before, my classroom management was not on par with where it should be. So that's more of a testament to how good these kids are. I know it's hard to see me because I'm so little, but I'm kind of going from group to group. Those two, that girl and that boy right there, they do not like working together whatsoever. I actually felt bad that I had to group them together, but I guess that's part of life that they have to learn. That girl that I'm talking to is another ESOL student that she's really good at hearing and speaking, but sometimes she just has to be told things a few different times in a few different ways to fully understand what the assignment is. I really tried to help every group that I could. There was obviously some partners that seemed like they really knew what they were doing and like they had it, but so I left them alone, but so that I could focus on more people who needed the help and the assistance. But I did try to go to every single group.
So what lessons did Amy learn?
I did notice, though, I had to repeat this prompt multiple times. I think I probably said this prompt probably 10 times before I restated it in front of the whole class.
I want a really strong sentence about that, and then I want to really.
I think in retrospect, what I could have done better was have written it up on the board so that they could look at it instead of asking me several times, because I think a lot of time was wasted in me just repeating this prompt over and over and over again.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to say this out loud one more time. So you're writing, what lesson did Amy learn? What did she learn from the situation? And did it work? So you're going to write it really strong. We've talked about thesis statements, right? Yes? So we're going to write a really strong thesis statement of, what lesson did she learn? And did it work? And then you're going to spend the rest of the paragraph going back into this text, and we're going to look at, I want to see text evidence of what lesson she learned supporting this, what you think she learned, and I want to see text evidence of if it worked or if it didn't. You're allowed to say it didn't work. I just want to see in the text where it says that she didn't. If you think that it did work, I want to see where in the text.
Yeah, I think I definitely should have put that up on the board so that they could see.
Okay.
The host teacher and I came up with that prompt together. I like it because it's good practice for the FSA. I was told that they already had knowledge for how to cite sources, so the whole goal was to just see if they could make a claim and provide text evidence to support it. That was the whole goal of this writing assignment. And we were just using it based off of the short story. And I liked the prompt because it did open up my host teachers and my eyes to the level that they were at, and it really helped the host teacher with where she needed to start the next day and like how much she actually needed to reteach on how to use evidence and sources. And it actually helped her. Some of the classmate students did really well, but overall the class really showed that they needed help with this area. So she actually ended up, as a follow-up lesson the next few days, giving them sources that would have been found. It was in spring book, so it would have been found on like the EOCs or the FSA comparable, and they actually ended up writing an entire essay as a class together so that they knew exactly what an argumentative paper is supposed to look like according to the FSA standards. This is about to cut off because my phone died. Basically, they ended the class. The class continued this until about the last 5 minutes or so. And then they finished up, put their names on the paper, and passed it forward. And then I was able to use these papers as my swap for my swap assignment. So that actually kind of worked out that I could use papers from the lesson that I taught so that I could figure out my own follow-up lesson to my lesson. Overall, I'd say it wasn't a complete failure of a lesson. I feel like it could have been directed a little bit better so that they knew what they were trying to achieve in their day. I think that I need to work on being a teacher as far as classroom management and teacher voice and confidence goes, but I'm really proud of my students. I think they did really well. And I think overall it wasn't a complete and total failure. I think it aligned with the standards of the state and that it was relevant to the students. And in a way it kind of scaffolded to what they should be working on. It built up to later lessons. It was the bottom rung of the scaffolding ladder. It could have definitely been more diverse, though. I will say that, for sure.